Nice. Emily.
Takes so much for me person, I'm not that for it either.
Alan's not. Well, I can't tell who's here because there's no names on the thing to address the audience of who we are.
Yeah, we should.
There.
I don't know where they are, what happens when you get the meet?
Trying to be, I think it's still 8 feet there.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
A minute or two?
Yeah, I want them. I'll wait till you get back.
Where you?
And you read, it's good that you're taking.
County attorney.
Said he was gonna be here. I wasn't the only one.
He's gonna be right.
That makes me feel.
Grab that in.
I didn't go, thank you.
I.
over here to give us.
Gonna say.
The.
You're right.
Hey, Jen, am I doing this or just give it to Reese?
I gotta put it, I'll give it to Reese, he's giving a little speech, so
Oh,
I don't know. If you
Yeah, I figure I just say a few words and then.
But I'm gonna give you, I'm gonna put it in the thing and I'll give it to you, I've got a little.
Reese could probably do that.
That's what we're gonna do.
Okay, so I'm gonna put it in Reese's spot then, is that good?
Yeah,
Okay,
The bid has already been left.
so that that is. That's what's gonna happen. We'll do it. Yeah.
That working? That doesn't fire up. Back here, so. It'll take a second. So just let it know if it doesn't.
Some hay sales.
I
I just.
Welcome.
What do you think?
Looks great. On the hillside, it's the only place that's.
It's up sun.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Matt, morning, JJ.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't start taking that, so, yeah.
it's like it. All right, we're a little past 10 today, so we will call the meeting to order and we'll rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, it looks like we got a good crowd here today and it's always nice to see people. We got Steve is via electronic communications here, so thanks everybody for showing up. Cooled down a little bit out there, so that's nice. And we'll move into public forum here. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak? Now, we do have a couple of public forums on the agenda today. So if you want to speak on the ordinance one, or we got a couple ordinance ones and the data center one.
Well, we have to just setting that public.
Just setting that one. Okay, so we do have a couple of public forums. If you want to talk about them, we can pull that of that. Otherwise, anything else? Come on up. Yeah, come on.
Hi, Joe Zappa with Urba at 7440 Cabin Drive in Graston.
A few points. I just want to say thank you so much to the county officials for working collaboratively with the township and the OCM to get our permitting process taken care of for our new structure. It's moving right along. And more than anything, I really appreciate the county's professionalism in treating us like any other business. It's very much appreciated. And I know there's been some noise that you guys have had to deal with, but we appreciate the partnerships. Secondly, Commissioner Waldem, you questions our charitable giving, and I wanted to give you just a quick update on that. So we did donate $15,000 to 5 local charities and another $5,000 or $10,000 to 5 local charities and 5 to the Royalton Township and matching funds. Additionally, this month, we also donated another $2,000 to the Smoke Eaters of Pine City, so the fire department. We will continue to give throughout the year as charities make known their interests. And we expect by the end of the year, we should donate in excess of $25,000 to local community activities. Finally, I want to send my personal appreciation to Jennifer Fredrickson and Leslie Sauter for their help with our marketing team. I thought you might like to see our new packaging that shows Proudly Pine County logo. This will be in dispensaries across the state, probably in another month or so. So we are truly proud to be a business in Pine County and want to share that with all of our consumers. So thank you again very much for all the work that you do and for your partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yep, Denise.
Morning, Denise Weiss, Royalton Township. On June 16th, I submitted a complaint and it was about odor. And it was for the month of May. And so out of that, June 2nd, we had 16 days in which the weed smell, marijuana smell was quite strong. This would be 51.61% of the month. I received a letter on July 14th from Pine County, and it stated really only 3 dates, May 8th, the 20th, and the 26th. It also stated that I had not listed May 11th on my complaint, which is false. I did state May 11th, and my time was from 4 to 6 p.m. With the odor. Now, odor does depend on the stage of growth. It depends on the wind. It depends on when it's hitting my house. And this is the dates that we had placed on the complaint, was 16 complete dates. So when it comes back that only 3 dates are listed, it just feels like it feels rude to us to be able to write these dates out 100% so that we are completely giving an accurate statement of what's happening at my house. It's not what's happening anywhere else. It's my home. We attended the OCM meeting on July 11th with the listening tour in St. Cloud and talking to Eric Tabal, which is the director of the OCM. We did ask a couple questions, and one of the questions was, how big is this facility compared to other facilities? And he stated, outside of tribal lands, this is, if not the largest, it's the largest per acreage. So when we are complaining about odor, and maybe not other people are, it's because we are dealing with one of the largest ones in the state of Minnesota. At the end, when we shook hands from the meeting, Eric, in shaking his hand, said, you guys are dealing with a lot of light. And he just kept shaking his head side to side. Like this, it's intense. It's a lot of light. And I said, yes, it is. Try living next to it. So when we mention light and we mention odor and we mention these other issues, and it's relatively just marginalized, as far as 16 days gets marginalized down to 3, and the 4th date is questioned, frankly, it's just disgusting as residents that we aren't being taken seriously. So that is what I have to say with that. Thanks.
Anybody else for public comment?
Len Slottick, 73261. Markville Road, Sandstone, Minnesota. That's it. Arnett Township. I got in the paper, everybody got this. It's a public statement. The cities of Hinckley, Sandstone, and Pine City are jointly exploring options of long-term sustainability for fire service in our region, and so on and so forth. I was wondering if you guys are involved in that at all or not? And it's huge. Communication is a big thing. Jeff, we're just the other night, there's a bad one out there, and we're out, and it's ambulance. Your guys are on board, right? Doing to upgrade some kind of, I ain't the one asking for personal stuff. I chose to live out in a remote thing. So, but if they're gonna, our taxes are still the same percentage wise for, we should have safety reasons for communications upgrade for that area.
Unread notifications.
I don't know what the heck is going on there, but that's not really me.
I'm technical, you can go on, sorry.
Yeah, but that's a huge thing out there, and Roger already took care of the road, County 25 is a very big, dangerous, the repair needed on that between Duxbury Road and 173, and it's gonna happen, you said this year. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in public forum? Anybody online? No? Okay. All right, we'll move on to the agenda. Is there any additions or corrections?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I have one addition and then a few corrections. The addition, I'm asking to add regular agenda item 6.1, which is to set a public hearing for the data center moratorium. And when we get to that agenda item, I can discuss a little bit more. And then there's a few corrections on regular agenda item number 1, the ordinance amendment for the county zoning. There's just a correction to the memorandum of understanding language. Yesterday, the DNR let me know that I had referred to the city of Willow River's 1993 floodplain ordinance in the MOU, which was the only recorded one, but the city actually did adopt one in 2023. And so that's the one that should be referenced. And so just reflecting the updated, corrected, which floodplain ordinance we're referring to of the cities. Regular agenda item number 2, the subsurface sewage treatment systems ordinance. Again, the Pollution Control Agency yesterday requested some additional language to be included in the amendment, which clarifies the fact that the structures won't actually be sitting on the septic tanks. And then regular agenda item number 7, just a few little updates to chart number 3, and just the discussion of chart number 3, just clarifying a few things there.
Okay,
I'll move it, Mr. Chair, as amended.
all right. You got a motion by Ludwig,
Second.
I'll second.
second by Holland. And we got to do, discussion. All right, any discussion on that? All right, hearing none, we do have to do roll call, right? Yeah, so Jen, can you call the roll?
Use this one.
Commissioner Waller,
Yes.
Commissioner Ludwig,
Aye.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, approve the minutes of the July 7, 2026 regular county board meeting and summary for publication, and the July 13, 2026 special meeting jail collaboration.
I'll move.
Okay, motion by Nelson,
Second. Ludwig.
second by Ludwig. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, or Jen, sorry. Getting the habit.
Commissioner Ludwig,
Aye.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Waller.
Yes.
All right, minutes of boards, committees and correspondence, 2025 City of Sandstone TIF report, Pine County Zoning Board minutes, March 26, 2026.
I'll move it.
Okay. Motion by Ludwig,
I'll second.
Second by Holland. Any discussion on them? Hearing none, go ahead.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Chair Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Welcome,
Yes.
Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
All right, and consent agenda. A lot of stuff on there today. Hopefully everybody had a chance to check it over. We'll entertain a motion.
I'll move the consent agenda.
All right, thank you. Motion by Holland,
Probably go second.
second by Ludwig. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, go ahead.
Okay, Chair Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Welcome,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Aye.
Chair Holland.
Yes.
All right, we'll move into the regular agenda and ordinance amendment, county zoning ordinance, official zoning map to include the city of Willowdale. Presentation of the ordinance, proposed zoning map and memorandum of understanding. Listen, you.
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Kelly Schroeder, County Administrator. So just a little background for you. In January 2020, Pine County adopted a county zoning ordinance that was a little bit out of the ordinary from a regular county zoning ordinance in that it had an opt-in provision. So it only covered cities and townships when they asked us to cover them. And so since that time, we've had a handful of jurisdictions that have made that request. And so most recently, we have received that request from the city of Willow River. The process for a city to opt in is that they need to pass a resolution requesting that they opt in. And then they need to draft a proposed zoning map. And so I met with them several times over the spring, refining what zoning map they wanted. So which districts did they want? What areas did they want commercial? Which areas did they want residential? Those types of things. And then also because it is a city, there is statutory responsibility for shorelands, and the scenic river ordinance that cities statutorily are required to do. And so in order for the county to do that on behalf of the city, we have to have a memorandum of understanding that the city has that responsibility, but the county is executing it for them. And so before you today, you have all of those items, an ordinance to amend the county zoning ordinance to include the city of Willow River, to amend the county zoning map because our county zoning map only exists in those areas that have opted in. And so you have a copy of what the Willow River zoning map would look like and their different zones, which they're really only using 2 zones, rural residential and commercial. They have Kettle River corridor area and then shoreland areas, but those are all statutorily defined. So those aren't things that we could decide. And then also that memorandum of understanding to ensure that all of those required ordinances to clarify that the county is taking those on behalf of the city.
Okay. All right, any questions from the board?
I have two, I can just make it 2-part. My first one is why are we, the reason? And then the second one would be, can our staff, that existing staff handle what's coming at us, some add additional?
Sure. And kind of the why I think for Willow River is very similar to those other jurisdictions that have opted in. And the reason that we did it this way is smaller cities and townships just do not have the staff capacity to work through all of these different things. And, right now too, there's just a lot of development pressure out there. And so it's just something that we're versed in dealing with and have good processes and procedures in place. Whereas a small city may have to invent those types of things, to address those. And then as far as the staff, our staffing ability, so we are going to be able to just absorb this within our fold. They really have a minimal number of permits that are issued in any given year. And there are some subdivisions coming down the pike in Willow River. However, that just runs through our zoning board who they meet anyways, whether there's 1 application or 2 applications or whatever it is.
Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. We will move on to public hearing, take public testimony. Anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this? I don't think anybody online either. Okay. Okay. Close the public hearing and any additional discussion from the county board. All right. Hearing none, consider the adoption ordinance 2026-27, amending the Pine County zoning ordinance to include Willow River City, amend the county zoning map to include the proposed zoning map for Willow River City, and authorize the county board to chair, administrator, and attorney to sign the memorandum of understanding.
I make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Waldham, second by Nelson. Any other discussion? Hearing none, go ahead.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Ludwig,
Aye.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Commissioner, or Chairman.
Aye. All right, ordinance amendment, Pine County subsurface sewage treatment system ordinance. Presentation of ordinance 2026-28, amending the Pine County subsurface sewage treatment system ordinance. Say that 5 times fast, I guess. Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Go ahead.
Chair, members of the board. I'm going to refer to it as SSTS.
That sounds a lot better.
Little less words. So Pine County's SSTS ordinance is really driven by Minnesota rule. And so Minnesota rule, of course, gives you a lot of regulations on how septic systems must be installed. One of those regulations is the setbacks from structures, from property lines, those types of things. And we have run into an issue where we have some high density seasonal recreational developments with very small lots. And so, I mean, the best known example of this is Pathfinder Village. And so on those lots, you simply cannot put in an individual septic system that meets the Minnesota rule setbacks. You just can't do it. And each of these lots need to be serviced by an SSTS. There is no city system or big pipe system for these lots to hook up to. And many of them have not been properly disposing of their septic waste for years. And so in an effort to streamline the process of those properties getting proper septic systems, we are requesting to amend our SSTS ordinance to allow an administrative variance process for those setbacks. Because there, in most instances, in almost every instance, the setbacks just cannot be met because of how the lots are configured. And so this would streamline that process so that we can just get them permitted and get those permits out and those septic systems put in and the sewage treated properly. And so the ordinance walks through just in this, what are the situations that we would allow it to be? And so it's only for holding tanks, and it's only on existing lots in those high density seasonal recreational developments. And it allows us to go up to 0 feet from a structure, including underneath a structure. So these developments, a lot of times will have like campers on them. And so with how the lots are laid out, sometimes a portion of the tank even needs to be under that camper. Yesterday, the MPCA did express concern and wanted that clarifying language that we weren't placing the actual structure on top of the tank because they're campers, they're park models, they're on piers. Like those structures will not be on top of the tank. And so that's why yesterday there was that additional language that was added, highlighted in yellow, just clarifying that it wouldn't be on top of the tank. And then also just allowing a 6-inch setback from the property line. Again, those lots are very, very small. And so in order to meet the setbacks, it's just not something that can be met. And then overall, also on the different items, we just walk through specifically which lots it applies to.
Okay. Now, is there do we have more than these types of places out there?
So the main one that comes to mind is Pathfinder Village. I think there could be, so as you'll note, it's lots of less than 3,000 square feet. So there could be some very small lots that were done back in, the 50s, 60s that aren't in Pathfinder Village that this applies to.
And now if someone or if something new came up where someone wanted to do this, it would all have to be kind of met.
Right, new lots, we would address it at the time that they were created.
Okay, but this would fit for them as well, right? This isn't just for existing,
It is only for existing
only
lots.
for existing. So if you did a new one, they would have to conform to,
Correct.
okay.
It's just that these lots already existed.
Yep.
They've been out there for 50 years.
And there's like, what, 1,500 or something?
1,200-ish out in Pathfinder.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I kind of already opened the county board discussion, so anybody else got any discussion?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So from what I understand, Pathfinder Village is over 2,000. Is there 2,000 people out there or how many parcels is out there?
There's 1,290 parcels.
1,290 parcels. Okay. Let's say then, for example, you have a small, similar parcel anywhere else then in our county? Are they gonna have the same opportunity then to build the same kind of structures, the same kind of setbacks, the same kind of what we're establishing here?
Yes, so and that's why this doesn't specifically refer to Pathfinder Village. As long as the lot is existing and meets those requirements, wherever it may be, it would apply.
Kind of like a Me Too clause, kind of. No?
It's not even a me too because it already's there.
All right.
Yep, we
couldn't
wrote it broadly.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
if I understand it right, a guy couldn't create a new lot that would be allowed under this system. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct, yes,
Yeah.
Item 2 of the requirements is that the lot had to exist prior to the adoption of this amendment.
Right. And then a little bit related to this, I don't probably even want to know what has been happening to their sewage up to this point, but now they're going to have a holding tank. Does the capacity exist to have those tanks pumped and spread somewhere?
Yeah,
Yeah, I will, so I can speak to Pathfinder specifically they have certain pumpers that go in there on certain days of the week and run through and pump these tanks. And so when we're permitting them, they have to have a contract with a pumper as well.
Okay.
I know campground I'm involved with, they have their own septic that they just pump it and haul it to that septic. So I don't know. Okay. Any other discussion?
Chair?
Yeah.
At one time, we had talked about, in the discussions on this ordinance regarding compliance inspections, is that, where did that end up at?
Yeah, so that did not end up in here requiring compliance inspections on any interval. But that's something that we could include. I would want it to be included in the ordinance, so it's not just some requirement, we've made up.
My concern is, and I'm glad we're dealing, because this is an issue, and to ignore it, what's happening is either if they can't, they're skirting the law, or worse, that it's being discharged into the ground, and it is all sand, so it all disappears. But you don't know where it's really going because you're not gonna see it bubbling out in the middle of the night because of its sand. My concern with the density, I think this is a good ordinance, but my concern is with the density that we have out there. We have holding tanks that are literally next to each other, and we have wells that are being permitted by, the state with the variances. So in order to protect the groundwater, I mean, holding tanks are great, but as they do need to be inspected periodically to make sure that they are not leaking. And again, a normal situation, you'd see leakage coming out around, but in this case, leakages could be happening and you don't know that. And so we do have the point of sale inspection. But in this case, since they're holding tanks and they do need to be pumped on a regular basis, if we would require, say, a compliance inspection on the tank every 5 years, that would be actually part of their pumping routine as well. So it would be actually minimal cost. And we would be ensuring that these tanks aren't failing, and you can't retro, but at least at this point, but I'm thinking going forward with the tanks that we are permitting, that it's something that we ought to be, I think, thinking about just because of the soils there and the high density that we have.
Yeah, I agree. I worry about people just self-pumping, buying a trash pump in the middle of the night, just pump their gray water out. You think a complaint would show up, but if they, some way to check.
Add an item 9 that just states that every 5 years, the system must be deemed compliant.
Who does that, us?
Who
The
does?
county?
No,
Okay,
nope. And a lot of our pumpers can actually fill out a tank integrity form, so it would just be part of their pumping process.
okay. So that ain't detrimental. to
That should
anything.
be happening anyways.
Okay. We just required everybody on board for that.
Okay.
And we can just add it.
I verified with restudies.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion on from the board?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Would that, for adding that to it for this inspection, would we want to run that back by zoning then or not? Or just leave them?
I think because it's such a minimal change, I would feel comfortable moving forward without it running back through the zoning board. And I think that was maybe part of the discussion with the zoning board. It might have just been left off of this.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, maybe and we start looking at this particular change, the overall change is not, this is not something that is widespread throughout our county. This is a very specific situation and you can, very narrow. So to deal with a problem, an issue that was created 50 years ago. I can't recall of other places where it's going to be very minimal other than the one place that was mentioned. So.
All right. Any other questions or discussion from the board? We'll open public hearing and take public testimony. Anybody here? Yeah. You gotta say your name and where you are again.
Go back, Glenn Slotnick, 73261 Marksville Road, Sanson. I have a brand new system, of course. And what is the county inspection? Am I mandated now for, no. Will I be mandated now on a, not this? Okay, then the only other thing I have, as I'm listening to this gets into the Gull Lake cabin owners that get taxed off their property. It could be the Pathfinder, old grandma and grandpa been there forever and ever. Will this new rule in place for these new tanks happen at the next transaction, at the next sale of the property? Are they, you're going through it now, even if you own it, the sewage police is gonna come in and arrest you and make you put the tank, how is it?
I can speak to that if you'd like. So no, we do not have the staff capacity to be the sewage police. So typically we have people who are just in their general line of living decide that they want to put in a tank, or it comes up at point of sale. So.
Okay, so that just standard,
Right.
Wouldn't get a new permit.
and then you're good with whatever, Purple Pumper coming in there and he says he looked down there and said there's no cracks and it's perfectly good because he ain't crawling down there to find out if there's a problem anyway. He didn't pressure test it or nothing like this. And this, I have issues about how that testing is really done because I know better. But anyway, you're okay with, how do you, does that man send that paperwork to somebody in the county here? You got staff to be the police?
Right. So if a pumper is a certified pumper.
Yep.
They have the ability to fill out what's called a tank integrity form and certify that the tank does
And
not.
yes, they have, yep.
So if that pumper is willing to do that, yep, they do that. And then we have like an online system that they just drop it into.
Okay, so you guys do not unlike Arna in a,
You don't require it.
thank you.
Any other public testimony? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Any other additional discussion from the county board? Okay. So consider the adoption of ordinance 2026-28, amending the Pine County Subsurface Sewage Treatment System Ordinance. I'm getting better, and authorize the board chair and county administrator to sign. We have a motion.
I'll move it, Mr. Chair.
Got a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We got a motion by Ludwig, second by Holland. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Go ahead.
Commissioner Baldwin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ludwig,
All right.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Chair Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yes.
All right, public hearings. Personal committee report. You want to take it?
Yep, I'll take it. We had our meeting, and I'll just read them off. Do you want me to, make a motion at the end for recommendation? All in one, okay. So Sheriff's Office Jail, we ratify the separation of part-time probationary corrections officer James Gross effective July 7th, 2026. Approve the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies resulting from internal promotion or lateral transfer. And Sheriff's Office Administration Support, approve the backfill of vacant secretary position and any subsequent vacancies resulting from internal promotion or lateral transfer. In Public Works, ratify the resignation of highway maintenance worker Jared Knutson effective May 22, 2026. Backfill of that position was previously approved. Health and Human Services, approve the recruitment for an additional social services supervisor position to support the child welfare and child protection services. Acknowledge the resignation of child protection social worker Brittany Hoagland effective July 22, 2026, and approve the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies resulting from internal promotion or lateral transfer. And the rest of the items are information only in the minutes, but Mr. Chair, if I could just discuss on the part B, the last two there. The addition of the supervisor is part of that act and everything else that's coming into us mandated by the state. The state is gonna give us one-time money for $100,000 for that position for 2027, right? 2028. It's up in the air if they're gonna fund that or not, but they made those changes. And the resignation for that social worker, she took a job as a supervisor in another county for more money. Or another position. And I will move those, Mr. Ship.
I'll second it, and with the discussion that, as you can see in the notes, that HHS position was a vacant, unfulfilled. So it is known that new bodies in that department, but it's kind of part of the restructure. It's kind of part of what's coming up. It is funded mostly for next year or all. But then they're arguing with the state, like everything, to try to get some more money to follow this because of the impact on the county. So, but it is a needed, it's just, there's so much work to be done with that, so. And then, the other one that just left, yeah, it was a promotion for that person.
Yeah, she moved, yeah.
A rather large one. So it's always interesting. You don't like seeing people leaving, but if they're leaving to do something better, to better themselves or their life, I think us as an employer can just be happy that we got them to that point. I know with my own personal job, I don't typically have career guys, and when they come to me and say, yep, I'm going somewhere because of this, I'm always happy for them. Because we were a part of that stepping stone. So I think it's good. It's positive to look forward to. And we're, obviously we'd like to keep them if there's not a position. We can't make new ones, but any other discussion?
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the, let me find it here again. Oh, the recruitment for an additional supervisor. Was there more people hired then to then, have a supervisor that would have to see over?
We're gonna add. And the state's giving us $100,000 for that position for 2027.
States getting
It's 2028 that's not funded, or we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, and if I can address that a little bit too. Our current supervisor in this area has a significant workload way over the state recommendation of direct reports. And then with the new changes to the age of delinquency in the act, just the level of supervision and guidance that's going to need to occur is going to be even way more significant than what it currently is.
So how many direct reports would there be for the supervisor position?
I didn't even see you back there.
I'm back there. Back there. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Becky Foss, Plain County Health and Human Services Director. So there would be, with the addition of the supervisor, there'd be 2 supervisors. There'd be roughly 7 direct reports per supervisor. There's a potential for that to grow just with the act and the age of delinquency changes. I think there's a lot that we are going to have to be doing and growing over time to meet the requirements of those new laws. One-time funding, ongoing mandate is what I'm going to continue to say.
I follow up. What's like the average number of reports to a supervisor? I believe I've seen somewhere there was a supervisor that only had two people reporting to them, or did I see
That's
something
the
like?
office manager who's also in charge of the office manager of Health and Human Services. So that is not typical for Health and Human Services. And in the Child Protection Task Force days back in about 2015, the recommended amount was 8. And so the current supervisor in that position is about twice that. And we are doing everything we can to take more off our plate. But at some point, you just have to come to the decision that more is needed. And that's where we are at with the workload.
Okay, so, all right, I'm just trying to figure, there's really then no, you could be a supervisor over 2 people, or you could be a supervisor over 7 people?
The recommended in child protection is no more than 8.
More than 8. But there's not a minimum then to become a supervisor. You could Could you?
I'm not aware of a
one?
minimum.
Could you supervise one then, I suppose?
I suppose you could. That's not what we do in Health and Human Services.
Max is 8.
Recommended max.
For child protection.
Oh. Okay. All right, thank you.
But
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, go ahead.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes.
Commissioner Ludwig,
Aye.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Mayor Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yes.
All right. County service recognition. I'm gonna start and then I'll turn it over to Reese. Kevin Hofstad, we're recognizing Kevin Hofstad for his 40 years of service on the Pine County Law Library Board of Trustees. I was thinking about this when I seen you and writing some notes. Reese will have a lot better stuff than I do, but when I first got elected, I got put on this board and I was like, what is the law library? I had no clue. I didn't have a whole lot of clue on anything to do with that whole area. So you get to go to these meetings with Kevin was always there every time, maybe a few he missed, but a lot less than I did. And I am the only one that sits around that table that is not an attorney or a judge, which a judge is an attorney as well. And Kevin always, we'd be talking about law books and stuff like that. Or they would, I was just listening, and Kevin would always look at me and say, do you have any thoughts, Josh? I'm like, none. That's not my wheelhouse. It's not what I deal with, but Kevin always respected me, and I had some input on other stuff that wasn't regarding that, but I've known Kevin for most of my life. I was 6 years old when you got appointed to the law library, so that's pretty cool. He always had an office 2 doors down from us, so he would frequent our store a lot. And just appreciate the time that I've had with him, and thank you for your service. So with that, I'll turn it over to Reese.
Might run up to the podium.
Okay.
Make him come up. I don't want to make him stand here though. All right, Mr. Chair, members of the board, good morning. So it's my honor to be here to recognize Kevin Hofstad for his 40 years of service on the Law Library Board. Looking at the online, it looks like we might have a couple people too also on the board who are joining us. So 40 years, as kind of Josh mentioned, being 6 years old is kind of a big number. It's a long passage of time. I like to think of things in a historical context. So when Kevin was appointed in 1986, Ronald Reagan was the president. Our current president, Donald Trump, was married to his first wife, Ivana, and would be for several years. Our current first lady was 15 years old. And the world's richest person right now, Elon Musk, was 14 years old at that time. 1994, Kevin had been on the board 8 years. Amazon was formed. And based on the number of boxes that come to my house, that's kind of a historical recognition for me, at least. A lot of us have boxes that go to our house from Amazon. 1996, Kevin had been on the board 10 years, and most people are off of boards after 10 years. Kevin was only about 25% through his service. Bill Clinton was re-elected as president, and the Macarena was a dance hit and became the world's most annoying wedding song for the next 30 years. 2006, Kevin had been on the board 20 years. That's only half his service. In 2006, the first tweet on Twitter was published. Now, that just covers the first 20 years. I'll skip through the next 20 because there were some not so good things in there. But the point is that during those 40 years, a lot had happened, but there was something that was consistent, and that was Kevin's involvement and leadership on the Law Library Board. As professionals, lawyers are expected to contribute to the profession and their community in various areas. One of those areas is access to the courts. It's a topic that gets talked a lot about in legal circles. The courts are expensive, they are complicated. Because of that, a large segment of our population can't afford to go to court. They don't have the knowledge to access it. And lawyers and courts are tasked with finding a way to make that more accessible to your average citizen. And one of the solutions to this is the Law Library Board. It has resources for self-represented litigants. and those resources are free. And the fact that Kevin was on that board for 40 years shows that he's committed to the ideal of professionalism and access to the courts for all. His service demonstrates the highest ideals in our profession. And he wasn't just a member for 40 years, as Josh kind of pointed out. He showed up to all the meetings. He contributed. In fact, he was our board chair for several years. In the last 11 and a half years that I've been a member on that board, I recall Kevin missing only one meeting. And I recall that because I'm the vice chair. I had to run the meeting, and that's the only time I had ever had to do anything as vice chair on this board. As board chair, Kevin ran every meeting with humor, with patience, with efficiency. There are a lot of positional egos on this board. You got a county commissioner, you got a county attorney, district judge. I'm not saying they have egos, but I'm saying that they're people with interests and opinions. And Kevin made sure that each of us had a chance to say something, but kept the meetings moving. And he was also a historian with regard to the Law Library Board. So when we had a question of way things were done a certain way, he had an answer for us. Of particular note for this county board is that the law library costs the county $0. It's funded through certain court fees. Kevin made sure that we kept the expenses within the revenue of the courts. There is actually a nice emergency fund that's been built up as part of this. And I can say that not all county law libraries can say this. There are a lot of county libraries that run a deficit, that go to their county boards with hat in hand and have to ask for funds. And of particular note too, is that Kevin did this for 40 years without per diem or anything fun like a county funded trip to a law library conference. Not that that would be fun, but he didn't get a perk like that. So to close this, I want to end this on a personal note. 11 and a half years ago, I started here as county attorney. I had lived in this county for several years, but I had practiced in a neighboring jurisdiction. So I was new to this legal community. And after I was sworn in, one of the very first calls I received was from Kevin Hofstede. I really didn't know him. And he called to invite me out to lunch. He wanted to meet me and welcome me to the local legal community. And that meant a lot to me. And it still does mean a lot to me that he did that. And I should note that the only other lawyers who did that in that community were actually proteges of Kevin. So that told me that he led others by example and set a high bar for all of us in this community. So it's my honor to present Kevin Hofstede, Esquire, retired, with this certificate in acknowledgement of his unprecedented service to the Law Library Board and Pine County. I feel like we're losing a champion for this Law Library Board. And I feel that our senior statesman in the local legal community is leaving us. And I mean senior in the most respectful way possible. But I do wish you well on your retirement. And I want to thank you on behalf of the citizens of Pine County.
Appreciate the high praise. Not necessarily expected, but certainly appreciated. Going back for your benefit, the first commissioner was Ed Montbryant. And Ed, much like you, sort of sat in the meetings with a glazed over look and but nonetheless, the input was always useful and important and always appreciated. Matt, did you do a turn on the Law Library Board too at some point? No? Okay, well, there's prospects out here then. So thank you.
They also assigned me the other side.
But it's a plum job. There's no acrimony to speak of. And for the most part, business is efficient. Maybe after I'm gone, it'll be more or less efficient. Who knows? But in any event, I appreciate this. It's an honor to be recognized for something that you really didn't intend to be recognized for, that you did because I was asked to do it. And it was something that was a service to the county, the community. And I leave with a lot of pride knowing that it's in good hands and it will continue on with its mission, although that'll be more complicated now with artificial intelligence and all that's happening in the outside.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hold on a second.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, I got a picture.
Go ahead,
if I
Steve.
could just say something too, I went to a leadership conference with Kevin about, I can't remember, Kevin, 30 years ago, maybe?
Yes.
The Blandon Foundation put on a leadership conference, and a few of us from Pine City went, and we got to know each other quite well during that week we were there. But Kevin was an encourager, and we appreciated his low-key way of doing business around the community, and the help that he gave so many people. And I know he did a lot of work that he probably never asked for any money for. So thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Steve. Much appreciated.
And we get a picture with you and Reese. Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right, thanks again. All right, next on the list, introduction of the DNR Northeast Regional Director. Introduction of Clarissa Spicer, Northeast Regional Director of Minnesota Department of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Clarissa Spicer. I'm the new Northeast Regional Director for the Minnesota DNR. I've been in this role for about a year now. You might remember working with my predecessor, Shelley Patton. She was a conservation officer and became the regional director and served in that role for about 5 years. I, on the other hand, come from the Division of Forestry. I've spent about 20 years working in northern Minnesota, fighting fires and managing timber for the state. So that's a little bit about my background. My purpose for being here today is simply to introduce myself. I don't have any specific agenda item. I simply wanted to introduce myself and meet everybody face to face. I also thought it might be nice to recap a little bit about what the Minnesota DNR does in Pine County more specifically. Statewide, our mission for the Department of Natural Resources is to work with Minnesotans to conserve and manage the state's natural resources, provide outdoor recreation opportunities, and facilitate commercial use in a way that creates a sustainable quality of life. We have 7 divisions, including not just forestry and enforcement, but parks and trails, fish and wildlife, ecological water resources, lands and minerals, and our operations services division. There's 4 regions in the state for the Minnesota DNR, and I represent the Northeast region, and I represent all 7 divisions. In your packet, you have some highlights about the work the DNR does in Pine County. I'll just hit on a couple of those. There are 6 state forests, 15 wildlife management areas, and 10 aquatic management areas in Pine County. There's also 2 state parks, Banning and St. Croix, which have an economic impact of an estimated $20 million in the county. We also have 2 scientific and natural areas, 38 public water accesses that we manage, as well as hundreds of miles of trails, including hunter walking trails, OHV, and snowmobile trails, many of which are managed in partnership with your constituents. My job as the regional director is to serve as a point of connection for you. You already have a lot of connections, I know, with the local Minnesota DNR staff. There's about 40 full-time staff who work in the DNR in Pine County and numerous others that are volunteers, interns, and seasonal workers. If you are ever not sure who to reach out to in the Minnesota DNR, I'm an excellent first stop for you. And that's how I plan to serve you going forward. So please don't hesitate to reach out anytime. You've got my name in your agenda, and I'm very easy to find online. So please don't hesitate to look me up and reach out for anything I might be able to help you with. That's all I have for you.
All right. Well, thank you. It's nice and interesting to have, the connection with who's in charge around here. And I know the county's been working with the DNR with that Cross Lake boat landing. And I know the county's working on that and the fair board. So hopefully that is still scheduled to get going. And I know one of the things I had said on that is I would like to see the DNR kind of work on a winter access, a good winter access to Cross Lake. So, and it sounded like they were talking about the dam boat landing. There might be some potential there that they can try to get just a decent winter access. So, but again, I appreciate it. Anybody else got any questions, comments? Yeah, go ahead.
Two things. First off, thanks for coming and introducing yourself. I did notice in your report that you talked about the Ogama Township culvert concerns. It was listed in your, and I'm glad to see that you are concerned and addressing that. I mean, as Ogama is one of the townships that I represent as well, and their concerns about, the excessive cost that would be there to replace culverts that had just been replaced. And so as much, I appreciate the concerns, but thank you for being willing to work with the township regarding that. And we will be following that as well, because that could be a significant amount of money. And so
Yeah.
just wanted to bring that up. And then secondly, is maybe it's more of a question of how you deal with that. So in some of your WMAs and some of your AMAs, I've also heard some complaints from townships regarding weed infestations in some of those. And so what is the remedy that you have to deal with some of those weed infestations? And then maybe secondly, how would those townships address those concerns?
Certainly I'd invite you or anybody from the township to reach out to me and I can find the correct connection. We have a terrestrial invasive species program. So we would start by identifying, we'd go out, do a site visit, identify the species that are there. And depending on what species it is, we have different sorts of remedies. So a lot of them are chemical, like using herbicides, for example, but we also do mechanical treatments. It really depends on the species. And as you mentioned before, resources are limited. So we try and do whatever's most cost effective. And we do a lot of signage and things too. Public education is an important part of limiting the spread of both aquatic and terrestrial invasives. So
Great, thank you.
well received. Mhm.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, if I could, thank you very much for coming. I'm a trail guy, and I got a lot of friends that hike and bike, and Munger Trail, of course, is scheduled to get some upgrading done to it. I hope that can get done. And then, as you're probably aware, there's that gap between the Munger Trail where it stops in Hinckley and where the trail system from the metro area comes north. And it's got a name for it, and it's got a corridor, but it doesn't seem to get much traction to get the trail. The name is the James Obastar Trail that would connect through southern Pine County and northern Chisago County. So that's always on my mind.
Yeah, thank you. That's on my radar as well. I'm looking forward to keeping in touch with you on that. And
Excellent.
yeah, those connections are really important for the local economy too. So we like to have those connections made.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I got something, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Like you said, have something on your radar, and you're new. Sometimes a new set of eyes on something is helpful. East of, well, I know the bar down there, Mavericks. What forest is out there east of Shangwatana? There was a situation, and you said you were involved with logging, or that was your expertise. There was a situation where it was brought to my attention, and I went and looked at it. The DNR actually sunk a pickup truck up there, and then there's a lot of damage to the pickup truck, physical damage, dented, scratched, things broken. It dropped through the ice. It dropped through the ground that time of year. It was December. And then they decided to retrieve it with a heavier vehicle, a bulldozer, which then fell through, which then leaked oil, diesel, hydraulic fluid, all the essential liquids that are inside that machine. And then that was also where it's located, I believe, is in the Mount Simon Hinckley water aquifer, which is heavily regulated. And what's changed for procedure? I guess you're new, so maybe you can help me. I haven't heard any response back when I inquired about it. There was a delineation, a wetland delineation that maybe just took minutes to realize. They said that there was really, no impact when there was several hundred yards of trails and ruts and impact and disturbed soils. And is there something, maybe with the new set of eyes and your expertise with your forestry background?
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to look into that.
I guess I appreciate it.
You know, what winter that was? You said December of
24, 24, I believe.
Yeah, we do.
I get asked, occasionally about it, and it just seemed to go away. And the thing that was pointed out to me was the DNR advertises and puts for public service announcements. I'm sure you can picture it. I certainly can. Where it shows a person walking on this much ice, and then an ATV with this much ice, and then it gets progressively bigger. You need 8 to 10 inches for a. Then the DNR themselves seem to just ignore that. And if you drop a pickup truck through, bringing a heavier vehicle, seems to be going the wrong direction. And then just with containment issues, you should have, they should have some sort. You carry a fire extinguisher in case there's a fire, I'm sure. But I mean, anytime you're working in that kind of condition, they have the booms to hold in, the liquids, the oils, the antifreezes, it's unresolved.
Okay, I'll look into it. Yeah, I mean, people do make mistakes and we seek to remedy them. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Number 6, cannabis complaint review.
Sure, Mr. Chair, members of the board. You have on the agenda today and in your packet a copy of the letter that I had sent to Ms. Weiss in response to some complaints that have been received. And I just wanted to talk through it, answer any questions that you have, and receive feedback from you because, we address things based on ordinance. And I know our zoning board is continually reviewing the ordinance, the cannabis ordinance. And actually on Thursday is going to be on their agenda, looking at a few items on the agenda that I think Commissioner Nelson had asked them to look at with the cannabis ordinance with potential amendments. But overall, I wanted to just review these complaints, get your feedback, if there's something that I'm missing, and ensure that I am adequately addressing these complaints. And so I do want to note that on January 23rd, I had issued kind of a formal findings of fact based on a number of complaints that were received regarding a lot of things, but kind of the ongoing complaints have been lighting, odor, wastewater management. And back then and continuing today, I am not finding a violation of the ordinance as it's written today. And so when there's not a violation, there's not any action that we can or should take, because otherwise you would just be making up rules. We need to go with what's in the ordinance. I want to clarify, Ms. Weiss in the public comment had addressed the odor complaint. In my letter, I do not specifically say that there was only odor on 3 dates. I specifically note that we were there on those 3 dates, and had detected no odor or only minimal odor at those times, which we are only able to drive the public roadways surrounding the property. But yet, I was just acknowledging that we have put significant resources into monitoring this property, and there were 3 dates and times that lined up exactly with her complaint. that, you know, we were there, detected no or minimal odor. As referring to the May 11th, May 11th was on her complaint. However, you know, that we were there at 7:02 a.m. and did actually notice a strong odor at that time, which was not on her complaint, which I don't expect someone to be monitoring it 24/7. But yet it really just demonstrates that the odors really vary by operating conditions, environmental factors, stage of growth, those types of things. And really the presence of occasional agricultural type odors in a rural area, you know, it's not a violation of Pine County ordinance. I think when we looked at the ordinance, it gets concerning if we're going to start regulating odors in agricultural areas, of what defines an odor. There's been some significant correspondence regarding water well test results that were both contained in the permit file and received on private properties. And questions as to why we issued the permit, even with those well water test results in the file. That was not something that was required to be submitted by the applicant as part of the file, and it's not a requirement in our ordinance. So it's not something that we can even consider when approving or denying a permit unless it's in the ordinance. I had significant discussion and research with Minnesota Department of Health, and it's noted that, you know, shallow wells are very susceptible to having elevated nitrate concentrations and other types of issues with contamination, because they're essentially taking surface water when it's a shallow well. So that's less than 50 feet deep. So Department of Health has all sorts of fact sheets regarding shallow wells, sandpoint wells, and how susceptible they are to contamination. And Pine County does not have any authority to oversee wells or issue permits or not issue permits based on water test results. And you know, we've addressed the lighting numerous times, so my letter doesn't address the lighting because I think the lighting hasn't changed since that January 23rd. And just in my letter, I note, and also for your knowledge, you know, at this point, I'm investigating new credible complaints that are presenting new information. But from my standpoint, I don't have the resources to continue to pour into monitoring this business in Pine County that at this point has not violated an ordinance. So I don't know if you have questions, concerns.
Okay.
I do want to reiterate that the zoning board on Thursday does have on their agenda to review the cannabis ordinance and consider those changes that Commissioner Nelson had suggested back in May.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thanks, Kelly, for writing the letter, and thanks for the explanations. You know, some of us have lived around Pine City long enough to remember the alfalfa plant that was in Graston. And my wife grew up right across from the radio station, which is a fair piece, and that those odors were there, you know, in the 60s up until, I don't know when they closed the plant. I moved to town in 74, and I remember smelling them, you know, when you would head west of town. You didn't have to get very far west of town on the right day. And so there's been odors in the Graston area for a long time.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Okay.
I've heard about this, the Department of OCM, Office of are they going to speak at the zoning, or have you reached out to them to have them?
I have not reached out to them. You know, they provide guidance as needed. And I think if we had specific guidance the zoning board was looking for, you know, we could definitely do that. You know, OCM could go back and ask for statutory changes and things if they don't think that we're doing something sufficiently as well, or rule changes. Because OCM does have the authority to regulate things too. So it's not just Pine County's responsibility.
Right, would there be any support to have the county reach out to OCM and offer them an invite to come and?
What would we be asking them for?
Well, just to explain, their stand on things there. I know there was some setback things that were early in this, they've even spelled out where, utilizing the, industrial area to deal with that aspect of these types of, they are the state oversight of this, correct?
Correct. And I will note, OCM's original direction was in industrial area, and then they changed course and says industrial or agricultural. So, we're all learning about cannabis and where it works, what we need to regulate. And that's the purpose of continuing to review the ordinance.
Okay. I guess there's nothing stopping anybody from inviting, reaching out to them and having them show up just for Q&A, if nothing else, questions, answers.
Sure, if the board would request them to be on the agenda, they should be on the agenda, not just show up.
Oh, okay.
Again, I think what Administrator Schroeder's, what would we want them there for? Do we have specific concerns or questions or something? I know the OCM has reached out to us, Pine County, on a number of occasions to ask how we deal with it, what we're doing, what's working, what's not. So we do continue that dialogue, but.
Well, I would like to invite the OCM. So that's a motion.
Okay, a motion. Are you? Okay, I'm just trying to understand. A motion to invite OCM to the meeting on Thursday?
Yeah, just have somebody there to answer questions. So let's try to get everybody together.
Can we,
To the zoning board meeting on Thursday?
Yeah.
isn't that the zoning board would have to do
You guys can direct me to do things. So, we do have some zoning board members here. I don't know if they find it beneficial.
that?
I don't know, or is there a second?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, can we put something on the zoning board's agenda without discussing it with the zoning board?
Ideally, probably not.
Okay, yeah. We can't instruct them to invite OCM or whatever. Okay. That's what I was kind of thinking, because it isn't our meeting, it's the zoning board's meeting. So. You can reach out to OCM and have all the discussion you want with them and see what they're, whatever. So.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion on this matter?
A couple things.
Yeah.
Sure. First, maybe I'll just start at about 3 or 4 things. I'll just start in the back end with OCM. It seems, we've had some meetings and they've had a bunch of listening sessions around the state. And I'm a little unsure as to what their role really is, to be honest with you. They seem to tell you what you want to hear at these meetings. And depending on what the crowd is that's there. But then when it comes to making some decisions on things, that they'll either refer to that's the state, that's the legislature's job, or that's somebody else's job. But they do the paperwork. Are we really going to get answers at this point? I don't know. That's just off the cuff remark. But the other things that I do have to talk about, we'll go kind of reverse order. I think the light issue, that is, because that has been a concern. We can't turn the clock back on that. But I do think going forward that will be addressed, with these upcoming. It's not going to happen immediately, but in the long term, that will be addressed. my understanding through some of these upcoming ordinances, changes. Regarding odor, the question, and we've talked about this before, what mechanism do we have to measure odor? Is it my nose versus your nose? That is no mechanism to measure odor. The standard is in parts per million of some sort of particle. And whether is that particle dangerous or not just do we have aversion to the smell or not. And that again is not regulated by Pine County or any ordinance. That is MPCA that generally regulates air quality. And so if there's issues there, that's where that concern ought to be addressed. And I don't know that they have standards developed yet. And so it's way premature for us to try to develop those sort of standards. And then maybe my last thing, and I think this is probably the overriding issue, is I think we need to take a historical look at land use regulations in Pine County. Because I'll just say, and I'm going to go back 35 years, and that's way before I was on this board and many others, but I've been to a number of meetings in the last 35 years in which land use in Pine County has come up as an issue. Should we have a countywide zoning? How regulated should we be? And every time that issue comes up, which is about every 10 years, that there are a number of township officials and such, I mean, obviously somebody's bringing it forward, but our townships seem to say loud and clear, we do not want that. We would rather that instead of a top-down approach from the county, that it be more individualized from the township. And so that's sort of been the approach that I think we have heard over the past 35 years. And so our ordinances reflect that. And so you're going to see that even in this cannabis ordinance, that if you think it's not regulated enough, that we expect the townships to develop their own ordinance. If they don't think that, and there's some that have on a number of other things. And this is no different with cannabis. And I think the township that is in question here actually took a look at that. And I think they chose not to. Now, and because they chose not to, does that mean we should then jump in and raise the bar? When the township said we don't see it necessary, just because somebody's not getting what they want, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. You ought to be looking at your township and saying, and if there's a number of townships that come forward and say, whatever the issue is, we think the county ought to deal with this, then that's the process in which we do. And historically, that's how it's happened. And I don't want to see us trying to end run or bypass that sort of historical precedent that we have. And so I say, go to your township with this. And if they don't think it's an issue, then why should we be dealing with them?
Okay, any other discussion?
Thank you, Roger.
Yeah.
I think you were spot on.
All right, well, we don't have no action on this. It was something that we dealt with. We don't normally do these. We don't typically take a request to get something on the agenda that is already dealt with. But we wanted to get it out in the public, have a board discussion. And I think the consensus is pretty clear. So I appreciate it. thank you for all the work that we've done on this. I think it is very important to put something like this done, to bed. We have business owner that is been working really hard to be a good partner, that has been, trying to address some stuff. And there's things that happen, you know, there was a winery down that road. There's people driving down that road. Yes, it's a nice peaceful, area there. I know a lot of the neighbors in the area. And I've talked to them. I've had to ask them questions. Are there any concerns you have? Well, sometimes it smells, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the lights, sometimes it doesn't. They're like, they understand because, you know, that's what happens. Nobody wants it in their backyard. Everybody wants to have everything in their area, but they don't want to deal with the consequences of that. So, I just hope that everybody gets a little sense of maybe closure on this, at least for now. And we'll just see what comes down. Like I said, our interaction with OCM has been, they've really been looking at us and we offered that because they're like, what's working, what's not. And you know, some people just don't agree with it. Like I said in the first hand, I think it should be treated like any other business. I don't see why they should have special stuff around them just because they're cannabis, but that's where we're at. And that's what we did. So thank you. And, we'll move on. So, 6.1 data center public hearing.
Sure, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Obviously at the last board meeting, the county board passed ordinance 2026-15, which was enacting a moratorium on data centers. As I moved forward to finalize that ordinance, I dug deeper into the statute that establishes our authority to grant that ordinance. Trying to decide, you know, does it need to be published like a regular ordinance? What are the procedures to finalize this? And in that deep dive, I came to the realization that we likely needed a public hearing during that process. And I verified with our county attorney, and he noted that yes, you know, procedurally there likely should have been a public hearing. So what I'm requesting today, because we don't want any issues moving forward with the data center moratorium, I'm requesting that you set a public hearing at or as close to 10 a.m. as possible on August 18th, right here, which would be to hear public testimony regarding the data center moratorium and then just reaffirming that ordinance that we had approved.
Okay. And we need a motion on that?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. You got a second?
Yeah.
Motion by Nelson, second by Ludwig. Any other discussion on setting the data center moratorium public hearing? It wasn't. Okay. Any other discussion on that? Hearing none, go ahead.
Commissioner Ludwig,
Aye.
Commissioner Hale,
Yes.
Chair Moore,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Waller.
Yes.
All right. 2026 second quarter budget report.
Sure, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I think Brian's going to share the graphs here in just a second. And so this is a very similar report to what you've seen previously. We have 4 graphs that I was going to just quickly talk through. So chart number 1 summarizes the revenues and expenditures for each major fund. So obviously we have a lot more funds than just the general fund, HHS and road and bridge, but these are the major funds. And so reporting on those for both the revenue and the expenditures are below 50%. In each of those areas and overall, when you're looking at the whole budget, which is really good to see considering that the first half of the year typically has a significant amount of expenditures with our bond payments and with just contracts that renew the beginning of the year. And so the revenue being below the 50% isn't concerning to me. because our significant portion of our state aid revenue is usually received during the third quarter. And so it's not concerning to me that the revenue is lagging so far behind. Chart number 2 looks at the revenue only for the general fund departments. And so the green bars on chart number 2 are just as year to date as of June 30th, what the revenue for each of those departments was. And then the black line is the 5-year average. And that just helps us understand of how those departments are doing compared to historically. I'll note that the auditor's office is looking like a gold star up there with over 100% of revenue. That is simply because most of the revenue is just an inter-fund transfer. So their revenue comes from the land fund, which that's just done in January. And then the portion that's over the 100% is because in 2026, we began needing to do tract searches on properties that will be forfeited. So we have an expense that goes along with that. And then as people purchase or repurchase tax forfeited land, that gets reimbursed. And so that wasn't included in the budget when we set it. It was a new process we had to begin. And so that's why that revenue looks so far above 100%, because it's a revenue that we hadn't anticipated for the year. But there is a corresponding expense as well. I want to highlight that the assessor's office is at 0%, which is much below when the 5-year average, and that's simply just a function of the assessor's office revenue comes from the contracts, the payments from the townships and cities, and just it's a function of the timing of when those invoices are mailed to those cities and townships. So that is not concerning to me either. And then same with planning and zoning, it's below the 5-year trend, but that is completely due to just the timing of when the grant revenue is received. A lot of state aids is kind of nice because they have statutory dates they're paid, but with like the planning and zoning grants, the state grants that we receive, they are just paid whenever all the signatures are received and things like that. So it's not any specific date each year. And then the jail revenue is below the 5-year trend, but that's really because we had received a significant amount of boarding revenue in 2023 and 2025, so it elevated that historical average. So in my mind, that's not concerning. We seem to be on track and doing okay with the jail revenue. Chart number 3, you had a corrected version that was sent out yesterday. And so the numbers just changed about 1% on each department, and that was just because of how the timing of when I ran the report to get these numbers. And so when looking at these expenses, all departments are below 50% year-to-date spent, even though we're 50% through the year, except for IT and recorder, which is very typical because IT and recorder have expenditures that are typically paid in January because they're annual contracts. And so it's something that you just are going to, they typically are over 50%, even though we're only 50% of the year. And I do want to highlight the fact that the recorder's office, when you look at the 5-year trend, so that black line again, they're significantly under that 5-year trend. And that's simply because in past years, we were paying for a lot of expenses out of the recorder compliance and technology fund. But those fund balances have now been exhausted. And so now those expenses aren't being paid from there. So just overall, it's less. And then the last chart number 4, just does a little bit deeper dive into HHS by major division. So income maintenance, social services, public health, and then just HHS as a total. And all revenues and expenditures are where they're to be expected at this point in the year. And everything looks great there. Any questions on that?
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. We'll move on to commissioner updates. Northeast Minnesota Area Transportation Partnership. Looks like Holland, did you make that one?
Mr. Chair, I did not, but I got a report.
Okay.
It was mostly, they weren't handing out $500,000 checks to Pine County this time, but it was mostly just reports and bill pay in time.
Okay, thank you. Soil and Water Conservation District.
Yeah, it was pretty much a general meeting going over, I think I gave you the same numbers last time. They have like 742 acres in stewardship. One note though that's new is they are not gonna add a staff person next year, just because they're work from cut out. Well sealing still going pretty strong. And they're testing private wells is doing pretty good too. And then, probably the other big thing is, September 9th, they're gonna have the field day. We'll invite you to go with if you're interested, and they have a lot of projects that done. I could talk about some small projects, we're not talking about them, but it's a lot, but it takes a lot of time, but they're doing a lot of work out there. So anyway, September 9th, starting at 11:30, you could meet here if you want, and they're gonna do a little road tour and then lunch is provided, so. They should have got a flyer or email on that. Yesterday, so. Other than that, it was just pretty much general.
Okay. Arrowhead Transit.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Pine County Chemical Health Coalition.
I was unable to, I had a conflict, but
We switched to quarterly meetings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that.
Yep, sounds good. All right, City of Pine City meeting, I was unable to attend. Holland, you were there?
Yep, I was there. I think it was a pretty good meeting. We had our some public works people there and the city's public works person there, and I think they I think our feeling is we've got capable people, they've got a capable person for the most part. We just need to get out of their way. They know how to plow roads. They know when they need to be plowed. So I think we got that straightened out.
Good. All right, East Central Solid Waste.
Yeah, pretty much a bill paying meeting. There's some more cover that has to take place, and so there's a bid that they didn't have it for final review yet, but the low bid was a couple $100,000 under the engineer's estimate, so it's a couple $1 million worth of dirt work basically. It's a closure and gas well. As you know, there's methane gas that gets produced in a landfill. We have to capture that so it doesn't escape into the atmosphere. And you got two choices: you either burn it in a flare or run it through a generator. So we run it through a generator, and if the gas is capable of doing that, it runs a generator and powers into the SIMPA grid, which is a municipal power grid. And then if not, we flare off the rest. That's about it.
I know at one time you had talked how much it costs to open a land or open a new cell, and
Yeah.
then how much it costs to close the old one.
Yeah,
And
it's
a lot.
it's a lot. It's $5 to $7 million to open up a cell. As near as I can figure, if you do the cost average, it's about $1 million to $1.5 million a year if you cost average out the opening and closing accounts,
Yeah.
just for that portion of the landfill.
Yeah.
They are our new director is seriously looking at some things that'll help Pine County. One is the purchase of a grinder to grind brush, because that's always a municipality problem. And so the commission would own the grinder and go around to places that like Pine County's centers and grind up brush, and then maybe they could also collect our cardboard and glass and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Perfect. East Central Regional Library.
Sure. Primarily what we worked on this last month was the budget. And of course, you got 6 counties that are working on that together, and it's a give and a take. for all the counties to agree. Initially, Pine County's share was proposed at over 7% increase. In the end, the budget that we tentatively agreed to was a 1.53 increase for Pine County. Our portion of the budget for libraries. So again, it's got to go through our regular board and library board, and then all the different county boards as well. But that's what it's looking like for us at this point. So I guess that's where it's at.
Okay. Mille Lacs Band Ojibwe meeting. Did we have?
Yeah,
you-
Roger and I were there. Roger, go ahead. It was kind of a short meeting.
It was, and they introduced their new, I forgot her name.
Government relations.
Yes.
Brooke Wool.
Brooke Poole, who's a new government relations person, and then we did talk about some other things, and I think we set up a maybe, because they've got a new District 3 representative. So at our next meeting, we're intending, and it may even be larger, more of a introduction of an in-person meeting. So I think, I don't know to what extent they were working. So.
Perfect. All right, Judicial Ditch 6 meeting. Yeah, we did have the meeting this time. Last time we didn't, because of some posting requirements. So we did vote to separate ditch 1 and 6. So now I don't have to sit through ditch 1 and 6 meetings. I only have to go through ditch 6 meetings. Ditch 1 still has some more meetings because there was a few people in the public that wanted to have their stuff rechecked. But essentially what it is ditch 6 was done in the 40s, ditch 1 was done in the 2000 or 1900 something. So the ditch benefits were all set then. We had a redetermination of benefits. Ditch 1 and 6 overlapped in certain areas. So some people were responsible for one or the other, or both of them. So what we did is we had them separated and then a new determination of benefits. And they gave a very good presentation of how it works, how they do it, and then how they actually go to the people's property and physically look at it after the LiDAR and everything else was done. It's very interesting. So to move on, ditch 1, which is not a very big part of Pine County, and it stops before it gets to the Snake River. So it's kind of interesting, but on the southwest part of Pine County, there is a little portion, and we're in ditch 1 with Chisago County and Isanti County and a little bit of Kennebunk, yeah, all 4. So that's why it is a joint ditch. I don't know when we're gonna have any more meetings, but once everything filters down, I do not believe ditch 6 has any funds, so there will be a assessment done to the people that benefit to that, and that will be determined. So that's where we're at. Lakes and Pines.
Lakes and Pines met yesterday. A lot of grants. You're approving grants that for homelessness, and it's just that's time of the year when the grant approvals and the permission to apply for the grants is due. So the entire meeting basically was caught up with that.
Okay. Any other meetings anybody went to? I just wanted to touch real quick on our joint jail meeting, which I could have when we passed the minutes, but the jail collaboration meeting, we had a very good response. Do you know how many?
We ended up with about 45
Okay.
from different counties.
Yeah,
from
different
8 counties.
from 8 counties. commissioners, administrators, jail administrators, sheriffs. It was a lot of good discussion. And I think it'll lead into more stuff, but I just wanted to touch on that. Any other to come before the county board? Take a peek at your upcoming meetings. We are, yeah, you think?
Tomorrow at 2, correct?
No, we're not going away yet. So
Right.
yeah, we're just gonna take a 5-minute break here and then we'll start with our budget stuff.
Yep.
All right? Not
Okay.
gonna let you go to lunch yet.
But tomorrow's meeting is at 2.
Tomorrow's is at
11:43 a.m.
Okay, so let's take 5 minutes. We'll recess and then come back and start with the auditor treasurer. Thanks, Reese. So where am I? We are gonna, is Steve back with us?
Yeah, let's give it a quick second. It's tucked in weird.
How do I look?
My shirt was tucked in weird.
Your good side?
Yeah, good.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we got it now.
We can't
It says
see
my
those.
video won't start because the host has disabled it. What does that mean?
Ryan's working on
He
it.
says, hold on, he will correct
Okay.
that.
Okay.
You can probably get started.
Well, we really should. Okay, there he is.
Yeah.
Oh, there I am.
All
Okay.
right. Sounds good. Well, it looks better.
Oh, looked better before.
No, it looks better now. We can see us. So we'll reconvene and start with Auditor Treasurer. Mary, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, County Administrator Schroeder, Mary Lindala, County Auditor Treasurer. I will start with Department 41, the Auditor Treasurer Department. Ryan, can you put those up? Perfect, awesome. Oh, you do have them. So just some things to highlight on there. For the changes, auditor fees, we've had an increased request for auditor certificates. And I'm also looking at the fee schedule, which will come later in the year. But that will affect our 27 revenues. As Administrator Schroeder pointed out, for forfeitures, we do have to do track searches. And so now you will see for collections and NSF fees, account ending in 5860, as well as the corresponding expense for professional and tech services, last four of the account 6263, equal at $30,000 each. Just so that is noted on there because we are reimbursed for them. Reduction in salaries and wages for permanent, as well as the corresponding taxes have decreased with that. Excuse me. And then just based on historical spending, I opted to reduce our office supplies, our equipment and furniture, as well as our printing expense. So for a net expense of $830,678, which is a 2% increase over the 26 budget. Mary, this is down one FTE, correct? Correct.
Yes, I have not, I opted when our grants and special programs coordinator resigned in April. I had asked for an extension on the consideration of backfill. At this time, we have not, I have not chosen to backfill that position. So the duties that were being done by that individual have been split between myself, my chief deputy, Melissa Berg, as well as in the Health and Human Services area, Sam Lowe is taking on the roles that the grants and special programs coordinator was doing. So as long as it keeps working, we can try and save money where we can. Any questions?
Good, go.
Perfect. We'll move on to Department 63, Truth and Taxation. On this, I have no net change. There is a little movement around in there. I just wanted to note the increased postage based on the 26 budget. The net cost is still the same, but just moving that around so that it more accurately reflects the cost of postage. So it'll be a net expense of $6,500, same as for 26.
Expensive meeting.
I'm sorry?
It's an expensive meeting.
That is.
People
It's-
realize that, so it is.
Yes.
It's just interesting what it takes to
Yes,
actually
it
have.
is
It is expensive to produce the notices and to mail them out.
All right.
Fund 24, Department 71 elections. You will see a reduction in the 27 budget simply because it is a non-election year. We do have some school elections, and you will see that. The biggest reduction is in staff. No need to have temporary staff when we don't have a full election cycle. You will notice an increase in the repair and maintenance agreements of $13,000 compared to the 26 budget. That is due to our election equipment. We've had to purchase extended warranties due to the age of the equipment. The extended warranties are cheaper than replacing the equipment itself. Any questions?
Now, I remember a few years back, we decided to maybe, because we know every other year is an election year.
Yep.
Maybe soften the election year one, and maybe put some money in the budget next year, so then the election year isn't such a hit.
Yes, yep, and I do have that noted at 30,000 for the 27 budget.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yep, so and that is an increase of $5,000
Okay.
over the 26.
Okay.
Just because with the increased requirements for elections, as well as we'll see how it goes starting on the 24th. We do have the early voting period, which has replaced what was previously the absentee. That was for the first, let me think if I can do quick math here. For 46 days preceding the election, you can absentee vote, but now the 18 days immediately preceding the election are early vote, which is different than absentee. So.
Sounds good. All right. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Moving along, we have Fund 22, the land fund. On the forfeited property timber development, there is a decrease in there, and that is simply related to the decrease in our timber inventory that will be mature enough for sale. Staff costs, you'll notice there is a reduction. We are anticipating the retirement of our land commissioner this fall, and then hiring a technician, and then the reduced wages of whoever fills that land commissioner role.
Good.
In the 706 department, for claim surplus, that as budgeted for 26 is 0, because if there are any surpluses, we send them out.
Real quick, in 25, we did have a surplus of 165,330. Okay. All right.
Correct. And then we had claims for all of those funds that were distributed.
Okay. Oh, I see. So then you had to send it out. Okay.
Yep. Yep, we recognize the revenue because we did receive it, but then we expense it because we did distribute those out.
Okay. When did that change? 24?
24 was the correct. We
Okay.
started doing that.
Okay.
24, we had held off on our land auctions because of all of the statutory changes, so we didn't, everything got pushed into 25 because we drug our feet on 24 forfeitures.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. All right.
Did you have a question?
I did have a question on forfeiture, but you want me to wait till the end? Are we past are there any forfeitures now that happen that you have notices for foreclosure in the paper and whatnot?
Yep.
But those all going forward are under the new system, correct?
Correct. The new system as in,
Oh, the state, they're not.
Where we don't get to keep the surplus.
Yes.
Correct.
Where.
correct, any surplus, they would fill out the form and then we would distribute it to them. Looking at the land fund in Department 707 for timber development. Development is going to be lower due to less forfeited properties. And then we do have an increase in our blight cleanup and demo because we have an increase of properties affected by blight. So
Hey,
again,
Mary,
yeah.
it probably relates to the last point and this point, but do you do what's our net? You know, from the old days when we used to get to keep if there was any excess, but I know we have a lot of properties that we don't get as much as it costs us, for instance, to clean them up. So do we have a net how we would have come out? Am I asking the question right? That, you know, we used to end up with a little surplus. And now, how does that figure in?
So if we spend any money on the property, like cleaning it up, for example, that gets added into the minimum bid when it's listed for sale. So that we
Okay,
ensure
so
that we're always.
we get to keep that money then.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. So we just, if the parcel doesn't sell, then we just carry that debt of it.
Hopefully, unless the cleanup was excessively high and the property does not sell for that, then we would be out.
Correct.
But so
Yeah.
far, we've not had that case. And our land department keeps working on making sure that's not an issue, so.
Yeah, and one thing that we changed with the 2025 auction is we had a significantly blighted property in the city of Rutledge, for example. And so we worked with the city to ensure that their ordinances and everything was ready to go and gave notice when that property sold that they were already on notice that they needed to comply with the blight ordinances of the city. And so that's gonna be a new strategy because we don't have time. We have to sell them within 6 months of them forfeiting, so there's not necessarily a lot of time to do cleanup.
Any other questions? Oh, Steve, you're muted.
I know some counties have gotten stuck with, say, an old oil distribution center or something. And so it costs, you know, $300,000 to clean the place up, and it's just a little lot on a town that's defunct. So they're never gonna recapture their money out of it. So do we just eat that then?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, and that's the case that I think most of us always made, that we need to keep some of the surpluses to make up for the losses. But that ship sailed, so.
Correct. The surplus has to be distributed
Yep,
based on current legislation.
yep.
Last but not least, we have our debt, Fund 13, our jail bonds. This is a difference of $15 compared to the 26 budget. We have about a 0.5% increase on what we will be levying for. And then an additional $200 for the collection from mobile home current taxes. And then our principal and interest are based on our debt repayment schedules. So, and that is the same for Fund 40 with our courthouse bonds. The principal and interest and service charges are based on our debt repayment structure. An increase of 0.36% for property tax levy. And then for our capital improvement bonds, Fund 41, again, the principal and interest and service charges are based on our debt repayment schedule. And then 0.12% decrease in levy for property taxes.
All right. Any questions?
Good.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the administrator.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll get you your pen back.
Promise.
Yes.
All right, so I have a number of departments to walk through. And so I think I'll just start at the top. I did give you a cover sheet that gave you kind of the total. But again, that isn't like, because there's the non-departmental in there, that is the catch-all, the balancer of the general fund. And so it's important to note that is just a piece that exists, and we'll dig into that a little bit more in a second. So we'll start with the commissioner budget, the 01-005 commissioner budget. You'll notice some changes in the salaries there, and that is because of, in December, you guys had voted to increase those salaries slightly. You voted to increase the salaries after the 2026 budget was already approved. And so the 2027 budget is the first one that can reflect those changes. So that's a total of $5,730 increase. We had a little bit for the county contribution. We are assuming that our health insurance rates will go up 5%. And so that is why you see that change with the county health insurance contribution. And then overall, the other changes are simply just due to those changes in wages. So overall, commissioners have an $11,143 increase from last year, which is driven by both that salary increase and then the health insurance changes that we're anticipating. Any questions there? All right, otherwise we'll move on to the central services 01-062. So this is the department that simply is our postage machine for the county. So we pay for the postage out of this, and then departments reimburse for the postage. So it's a net zero budget, but yet it all runs through here. So there's not really any action to take, because this is the postage lines that you see in each individual department is the revenue that goes into this. And then the expenses are just whatever the actual postage is. Any questions on that one? That's an easy one. We'll jump into the county administrator budget. So the 01-072. So overall, looking at a 5% increase, which a significant portion of that, unfortunately, is driven by the health insurance. You have minor wage changes and increases, but the health insurance change, unfortunately, our previous county administrator did not take county health insurance, but I do. So you see that significant change there in the health insurance of an increase. Otherwise, all the rest of the changes are based on those salary changes, and then some minor changes based on like our copier lease and just general costs. It seems like all conferences and trainings seem to be far enough away that we need a hotel room. And so just trying to reflect more accurately of what the cost of those hotel rooms are. But yet I think mileage is something we are trying to push to use county cars more and that type of thing. And so hopefully cutting down on a little bit of the mileage expense on the corresponding other side. So overall, a 5% increase in the administrator budget, but most of that is just that change in health insurance, unfortunately. Jumping into the next budget, which is not a budget that Dave normally would have done. It was something that had fallen under me in my previous role, but given the fact that our planning and zoning does not have a department head, it has a manager, but it's not a department head. I'm presenting the budgets for those areas. And so one of those areas is the aquatic invasive species. And since we started receiving that fund in 2017 was the first year that we started receiving those dollars for the aquatic invasive species. So they're completely state dollars. I had been concerned that the dollars would be cut at some point, and now we've arrived at that point where the state of Minnesota cut the dollars in half that they're allocating to that program. So for next year, instead of $117,000, we're looking at about $59,000, which really scales back both the amount of salaries of our planning and zoning staff that we can cost out to this program. And then it also is going to have an impact on, we are going from 5 watercraft inspectors down to 4, just to try to make it within the funds that we have. And there is going to be very minimal dollars left over to be able to do grants out to the different lake associations and things, unless we had make a different decision on if we don't want watercraft inspectors and we would rather do fund those lake associations and things like that. Overall, that's something every February about you actually see the AIS budget and are able to decide on those things, but this will be the first year that really we have to make some hard decisions because the requests are going to significantly be over our dollars that we have. And I already have started to scale back just the county staff administration that's going to this department because the dollars aren't there. And so that means that's shifting back to the tax levy. Any questions on that?
You can see that it kind of peaked in 20, the fund balance, and then.
Yep, and then we've been drawing it down.
Yep, and we knew we were gonna do that, and we're just there.
Yep, we're here.
Okay.
On to the contract attorney. So this is our labor attorney. So we consult them a lot during union negotiations, or if we have grievances or just investigations that need to happen, we have that outside contract attorney, labor attorney that conducts those for us. So you can kind of see the historical costs that we've had within that department. There was some years where we didn't spend a lot, but yet then like last year in 2024, there was some pretty decent expenses. And in 2026, we likely have an arbitration that we're going to, and we've just had some investigations that have happened and things. So we are definitely needing that budget to stay the same, because we need that support of that outside attorney who specializes in those labor issues. On to Department 107 Planning and Zoning. So just to talk quickly through some of those changes. Zoning permits, I'm always a little bit cautious on budgeting. If you look back historically, we have always significantly met the budget expectations, but yet I keep saying the number of permits has to slow down, which they haven't yet, but they really do have to at some point slow down, I think. I am budgeting for a little bit more permit revenue, which I don't think that we will have a problem meeting that, looking at the historical permit revenues that we've gotten. So a little bit more revenue on the permit side. And then on the refunds and reimbursements, I want to highlight that. So Pine County is the fiscal host for the Snake River and the Kettle River Watershed 1 plan. Since we took that on, unfortunately, we haven't had stable staff. And so Soil and Water has done a lot of that work for us. And they received the reimbursements for their staff time to do that.
It's fair.
However, we've got stable staff now. And so the hope and the goal is to bring that back, start to bring that back in-house and receive those revenues to offset our existing staff costs, some existing staff costs. So that is what that piece is. Overall wages, very minimal really, because we've had some turnover and we've regraded positions. So for example, we went from 3 grade 8 positions to 10 and 8 and a 4 with some restructuring that we've done. And so that you don't see the salaries jumping up as much because of some of those decisions that we've made. Otherwise, and like the county health insurance, you see that significantly going down, and that is just a function of what choices the employees made. The previous employee had family insurance, and then the new one has single insurance. So that's kind of nice when we can capture those savings. Otherwise, I do want to highlight conference training and registration. So asking for a bump there of $1,000. We have 2 staff that need to get through all of the septic certification courses. They're gonna take two of them this year, but then there's still 3 courses each for them to take. And then our existing staff that is licensed will be certified, needs continuing ed, and it's just, it really adds up. But the hope is now that we're investing in those employees to get them certified, they're septic, they'll be here, and then this can start to go down. I do want to highlight, in the professional and technical services, historically, you see some dollars that were spent in those areas, and that was those years, when we have not had a certified septic inspector. We've had to contract with an outside, inspector, because I have been the only certified one, and I'm not able to go on sites and things. So we've had a contract inspector. However, for 2027, we should not need that contract inspector anymore. But for 2027 is the first year that we have to pay for our geo permits program. So previously that program was purchased through the Kettle River One Watershed One plan, which that was a 2-year grant funding cycle. And so we will be out of that grant funding cycle. So we will need to pay for that now, out of our own funds. And so that is what the anticipated cost for 2027 is. I will note that program, I think, really helps with our staff efficiency, in taking some of that administrative burden off, because that program just, contractors or people who want permits submitted online, and really like all of the administrative work of creating a septic or like a permit file and things is just done within that program. So that has been able to support some of those staff changes, as well as having that automated program to do those things. Otherwise, just some minor changes with room and board mileage. All of those things are costing slightly more. I want to highlight the program septic grants. So that line is simply those low income septic grants that we do. And so that line equals the same grant revenue we get. So the state gives us grant revenue to do those grants with, and then we pay them out. So it looks like a big increase, but that is just because those are the dollars that we were allocated through that grant cycle. And then no other changes. So overall, planning and zoning is looking at a 3.9% increase, which is about $8,000. I always struggle with the percentage increases because, almost a 4% increase could be big dollars depending on what you're talking, but here we're talking $8,000. Moving on to medical examiner, the 010249. So obviously last meeting we had the Midwest Medical Examiner's Office here doing their annual report. And so just looking at continuing with their same contract. So no changes to that budget. I think we've been very well served with them. I will note the transportation line item. That's always kind of a question mark, an estimate, because we don't know how many we're going to have to transport down to them. But the autopsies expense is just a contract amount quarterly. All right, moving on to solid waste. So solid waste is a pretty lengthy budget, and part of that is because some years back with our different activities, we split them out so that we could know exactly how much our household hazardous waste facilities were costing to run, how much that each transfer station was costing to run, and things like that. So you do see, it's a pretty lengthy budget, just so that we have more of that data available on how those facilities are running. In 2023, the state did finally increase our SCORE payments. So the state has, since the early 90s, provided counties with funding to focus on recycling efforts and those types of things. And we finally got an increase after many, many years in beginning in 2024. So just increasing the budget to try to reflect more of what those funds will be. Other ways, looking down the list, like the household hazardous waste grant. So that is a complete function of how much we take in. And so it's always a little bit unknown on how much you're going to take in there. You can see the big bump up in 2024 when we opened the Willow River Transfer Station, HHW, so that we were taking in more product. And so then we received more of the grant because we're taking more product in. Pine City and Willow River transfer stations, the usage of those just continue to increase, so just increasing the fees that go along with those. And so that's great to see that people are using those facilities. The tax collection, so at this point, I wasn't proposing any increase to our solid waste fee. For the 2026 budget, as a reminder, we went from $10 to $12, and just proposing to leave that at the $12 for 2027. So the change you just see in there is just new parcels coming on. So we only put that solid waste fee on improved parcels. And so as people improve parcels, then you do receive more funding from those. So that's why there's just that slight increase there. Other ways are salaries and reimbursements, really not planning to add any staff or cut any staff. It's just changes based on the staff that we have. I do want to highlight down at the very bottom of the first page, the transfers out the 6905 account. So that is part of our 2020 courthouse bonds, helped pay for that household hazardous waste building at the North Pine Transfer Station. And so the statute around solid waste debt is that the solid waste has to pay for their portion of the debt. So that for 2027 budget, the 22,360 or 86 is within the 2020 bond, the solid waste portion of that.
We got a good deal on that, though. That's what it went ahead.
Yes, and we had grant funds to match with it. On the second page of the solid waste, you see that we have the different programs split out, the HHW. And then I do want to highlight a little bit in the HHW, you'll see a $10,000 decrease in the collection and disposal and a $75,000 or $7,500 increase in the equipment and furniture. And that is just a change in how we're paying for our supplies. So we have to buy pallets and big Gaylord boxes and 55-gallon barrels and things. And previously those were just included in the collection and disposal line item, but we have shifted so that we're paying those out of the equipment and furniture line item now. So that's just why you see that shuffle around there, but yet it's a little bit less. So that's great news. Our transfer stations are pretty well running, kind of. They're very stable and not a lot of changes with those costs to run those programs. I'll kind of jump to the bottom there, the 6255 recycling contract services. So that is our contract with Bouquet Recycling. We do have just our annual contract with them renews based on the CPI changes. And so just anticipating what that will be for 2027. It's a little bit hard. Of course, when I set this number, I look at what it is at that time, which it's based on December. So you don't know that when you're setting it, but I think it's a pretty good guess. Other ways overall, again, I don't like percentages because the solid waste budget is going up 4%, but that's $2,800, like $2,800. Any questions on that? All right, page 10 gets a little bit more exciting because we get to economic development. And we're going to talk about this tomorrow too at the joint meeting with the HREDA. But as you look back, of course, our economic development budget has been zero, but yet we've been lucky enough to have an economic development coordinator since 2021. And so we've previously paid for that with the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act funds, but those all had to be spent by 12/31. So for 2027 is the first year that we need to look at how to pay for Leslie's position. And so that is mainly what this economic development department is Leslie's position. And so my proposal on how to pay for that is a little bit of a mixed bag. So the very first line, the refunds and reimbursements, I have $60,200 in there. And what that encompasses is a $50,000 contribution from the HREDA because she acts as their executive director. She does a lot of work on their behalf. And so that is going to be an ask I have of them tomorrow is that they commit to putting $50,000 into that position. And then Leslie has some grants that she's helping administer. And so she'll get some wages reimbursed. So just estimating based on those grants, about $10,200 be reimbursed from grants that she's working on. And then we do actually still, the next line item, the transfer in the 5990, it says LACTF. And so what that stands for is local Advisory Consistency Tribal Fund, I believe, is what that stands for. And so that was some COVID funds that we received back in 2022. It was a total of $100,000 that we received. And those COVID funds did not come with a date spent, like a date we had to spend them. So they have simply been sitting there, and I have been waiting for something big to pay with them. Because I don't want to do a bunch of little expenses out of this $100,000 pot. So my proposal is to take half of that $100,000 and put towards Leslie's position in 2027, and then use the other 50,000 in 2028 towards Leslie's position. I'm happy to have other conversations about those funds if you have a different idea. But it's an option without having to put that all on the taxpayer right away, to phase it in. So overall, you can see the cost of Leslie's position listed there. I'll note, the professional and technical and the economic development expenses. So when we do like those tax abatements, for example, we do have to have like notifications of public hearings in the newspaper. We do have to have some attorney expenses or Ellers review some documents. So when we do some of those economic development projects, we do have some costs that go along with them. And I will note that some cities, some counties do charge those developers and have them pay for those costs. And that's not something we've traditionally done, but it is something that we can think about. But you know, I think we really support economic development as well. So it's kind of a trade-off of, do you want people coming to us with projects and being helpful to them and making it an easy process? Do you guys have thoughts, questions on that?
I like that plan. I think it's I've always believed in that position. We started out with a half-time position, and we got a little traction there, but having Leslie there is really, I think of the things that I've been to in the last maybe year at Ascot and at Brokema, that absolutely would not have happened without her, because I don't know who else would do those. And so we don't have staff that can do it. The city doesn't have staff. The people running those companies don't have the wherewithal. So I just think it's a vital part of our county.
Yeah, and tomorrow Leslie has a presentation of a lot of that stuff that she's been working on, just so that you can quantify what is it that she's doing and what wouldn't have happened had we not had that position.
So is it okay to comment on it tomorrow instead of today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, just that big thing that you just did with Ascot or somebody alone, that was a lot of paper.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I will note with those funding sources that I've identified to pay for the position, that still puts, you know, just over $39,000 on the tax levy for that and those activities.
I'm fine with that.
All right, and then just, we're almost done with mine. Next is the Housing Authority and the 01072, and really how we've been working this budget item has really changed since 2023. So previous, in 2023 and back, we were paying the county was paying the per diems for the HRA EDA folks. And we were paying for, you know, their mileage, their training, those types of things. And then starting in 2024, we told them, you guys have money, you guys should pay that yourselves. And so that's what they've been doing. However, in 2023, we began receiving this state affordable housing aid. And so I do want to just budget for that aid that we've been receiving. And then as you may recall, that aid is all going into that local housing trust fund that we created some last year, maybe 2 years ago. And so our HRA EDA is who administers that. And so the only funds that we've spent out of that is the $123,000 for the rock project. And that goes through the HRA, they make a recommendation, and then you guys have the final say on it. So this budget, 01072 has definitely changed since 2023. And
Rules for using for administration, grant, all that, can we?
what's that?
Can we use some of those dollars for, zero for administration?
Zero, right. We cannot use any of those dollars for administration, but it's wonderful to have those dollars there. It's a state program, so we can only spend it on very specific things, but I just want to budget for it to recognize that it is revenue that we get and can spend. Otherwise, it just rolls over in the fund balance that I have noted. Moving on to the non-departmental, so this is the catch-all of the general fund budget. And so you'll note when you look at this, I don't have any budgeted increase for property taxes at this point. And that's where, you know, that $1.2 million deficit in the general fund comes in is, you know, we have to find other places to plug that. And so at this point, I don't have any budgeted property tax increase. Just kind of running down the line, you know, like the penalties and interest, for example, that's always just an estimate. So that's the penalties and interest people pay when they pay their property taxes late. And you never actually know how much that's going to be, how many are going to pay late and how many are not. So it's just an estimate based on what years past has been. I will note, like the state deed tax and the mortgage registration tax. So that's a percentage that we get off of every deed and mortgage that's recorded, and that has seemed to kind of trend up in the last year or so. So just assuming that trend will, just recognizing that trend, that there's going to be a little bit more revenue coming in there. In the 5014 line item, you'll see a decrease of $15,000. And that is our state settlement. So if you remember, there's that period of time of those tax forfeited properties from 2016 to 2023 that were in the settlement period of those forfeitures. And so when we sold them, the settlement said we got to keep 25% of it. And then the rest of it went off to the settlement to pay those claims. And so as we've sold those settlement parcels, obviously our 25% is getting smaller and smaller. And so I'm anticipating by 2027, we will have sold all of those settlement properties. And so for 2028, that budget will end up to be back at zero, but you can kind of see how much that 25% has been in 24 and 25, just so that you've got kind of a historical perspective on those. Overall, otherwise, you know, there's in the middle there's a bunch of small changes of our indirect costs. So for our health and human services, we receive like a percentage of all of their state and federal funds that they get. And it's based on a cost allocation report every year. And so that just gets reallocated out every year based on what the previous year's costs were. So overall, there's not a lot of change within that, all of those indirect costs. I do want to highlight interest income. So again, I did not increase this from 2026 budget. Overall, you know, rates they're stable to slightly decreasing. So I didn't want to be aggressive and increase it, even though when you look at the past couple of years, we've done very well. I want to make sure that it's an attainable number and a realistic number, as some of those higher rate CDs will start maturing. We'll have to be reinvesting those at a slightly lower rate, probably. Refunds and reimbursements, you see a decrease of $25,000 there. And that is, so MCIT once in a while will send us a rebate. And those rebates have gotten smaller and smaller over the years. Excuse me. You can go get a drink. I'll be right back.
Sounds good. Roger's got cough drops.
I got a bunch of them. I got 3 left.
Where'd JJ go?
Somewhere else.
Okay.
He had to leave.
All right. I'm back at it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to highlight that bottom transfers in line. And this is where a lot of the change from the non-departmental ends up is, that line previously was the ARPA funds that we were transferring into the general fund. And for 2027, we don't have any more ARPA funds that we can transfer into the general fund. So that is where a significant deficit comes from. Otherwise, the last page of the non-departmental, you see very minimal
40 PM.
changes. Our workers' compensation cost just continues to increase, unfortunately, so just recognizing that change. And same with like the insurance and those types of things. Any questions on that?
Kelly, has our insurance both on vehicles and buildings gone up as quickly as everybody's homeowners and car insurance has?
No, thankfully. Thankfully, it has not gone up. I know like my homeowner's insurance went up like 100%.
Yeah.
Yes, so no, we have seen very minor increases. You can kind of look at the spreadsheet and look back at that historical change. You know, there was a bit of a jump between 2023 and 24 and then 25, but otherwise it's been pretty level. So a majority of the change in the non-departmental comes from the fact that we don't have those over $500,000 of ARPA funds to plug that hole.
Right.
And then the last page is the COVID fund, which, as we talked about, the COVID fund is pretty well gone now. You can, of course, see the historical, what it was. At the very bottom, though, I am highlighting the fact that we have those local assist, the tribal consistency fund, the $50,000 proposing to spend on the economic development.
Okay.
Any questions?
All right, well, any direction, discussion? I know we're mostly just kind of compiling everything and then we'll get into that, I think, a little bit more, but.
Yeah, if there's questions on individual line items, though, I think that's helpful, or revenues that you think maybe we should be more aggressive on, but it's always a little bit scary being aggressive on revenues if you really can't do that. If you can't meet it, then.
Yeah. Yeah. You can say all you want on them, if it, yeah.
So part of our budget last year included, we did have a bit of a deficit budget in the sense of we hope to realize some savings throughout this year.
Right.
So halfway through the year, I mean, I kind of tried to gather from the presentation earlier that we indeed are making some progress in that area.
Right, I think, so we adopted, I think it was $180,000 or $160,000 deficit that was not addressed at the end of when we adopted the 2026 budget. And in the jail, they have made some changes with their medical and food contracts. We've got 2 positions that I can just think of off the top of my head that have been vacated that we haven't backfilled. So both the grants and special programs coordinator and then an appraiser position that was budgeted. So I think coming, that $180,000 deficit, I think that we won't have a problem coming out of that, that will turn out just fine. But as a reminder as well, in the general fund, we also had $350,000 of planned reserve spending.
You're right.
Okay. Yeah. Always fun. All right, well.
I said 12:45.
There you go.
Good job.
Good job.
That's a lot of numbers.
Can I ask about tomorrow's time? Because we've got the school meeting at Willow River at 6.
Right.
How long do we anticipate the meeting tomorrow to run, or what's their?
I anticipate an hour.
2 to 3.
Right,
And then our next one's not till 6.
correct.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Tomorrow at,
At 2.
tomorrow at 2, correct?
Correct. And I will just note that the HRA EDA has their regular meeting at 1.
Right.
So they'll be here and as you arrive, they may still be meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
All righty.
Well,
Thank
thanks,
you.
guys. We'll adjourn the meeting and thanks for sticking it out.